it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Sunday, October 12th to Saturday, October 18th. So last week we had Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, ruler of information, communication, and how it is that we express ourselves, leave that Libra energy, which I think was a beautiful thing, for Scorpio energy, which definitely turned the intensity up in our headspace. Of course, that popped off approximately 12 hours prior to the full moon in Aries popping off at 14 degrees, 8 minutes of the sign. Both events popped off on the 6th, which of course was a major turning point, major pivot point in this lunar cycle that began under the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo energy. So this week we have the last quarter moon popping off in that particular lunar cycle. It's taking place in its rulership in Cancer energy, and it will be popping off at 20 degrees, 40 minutes of the sign on the 13th. Now, the 13th is a major day. If you haven't listened to the October energy forecast, you should definitely do so because the 13th is going to be a major pivot point as well. We start off with that last quarter moon in Cancer. We follow it with Venus moving into her rulership in Libra energy. And we have Pluto, the great transformer, stationing direct. That's a pretty big deal, especially because this last quarter moon in Cancer is going to be taking place while Venus sits at that 29th critical crisis karmic degree of Virgo energy, which of course was exactly where we had this new moon solar eclipse just a couple of weeks ago. This screams of karmic residue, meaning the reckoning that we're currently going through with the karmic activations that kind of got rippled out under eclipse season, they're coming into fruition. Any type of relationship dynamic that did not explode and decompose under that full moon in Aries will definitely be shaken, stirred, rattled, and rolled at that 29 degrees in Virgo. So where we make the adjustments in Virgo energy, we attempt to bring things into peace, harmony, and balance in the Libra energy. And having Venus move into her rulership in Libra energy, while not only the last quarter moon is taking place in her rulership in Cancer energy, but Pluto stationing direct as well. Major changes, major transformations are taking place on an emotional level, on a karmic level, specifically where relationships are concerned. So this week, we will see the moon kick off in Cancer energy and end in Virgo energy. And having that moon transit through the Virgo energy is going to be a flashback to what Virgo season was all about, specifically that eclipse energy, what that was all about. Now, Virgo energy doesn't mess around. It's time to identify the problem, fix it, heal it, repair it, specifically in our emotional realm. And because that Virgo energy precedes the Libra energy, we are definitely going to see some revelations, some realizations on where some fine tuning is needed. When the moon actually shifts into Libra energy, we're going to be building towards the new moon taking place in Libra on the 21st, which of course is also the last day of Libra season. And that is the potentiality of us actually feeling like we struck some sort of compromise point, some sort of peace and harmony and balance point within us. I did mention at the beginning of the season that it was going to take the whole damn season in order for us to find that sweet spot. And again, we have to go through this week of fine-tuning, of tweaking, of adjusting, if you will, before that sweet spot is even in our sights. So this week, we're going to be building towards that new moon in Libra. We're also going to be closing out Libra season, and this is going to be the last full week of Neptune in Aries energy. He will be retrograding back into his rulership in Pisces energy just hours after that new moon in Libra pops off and just hours before the sun shifts into Scorpio energy. Definitely an interesting month, interesting weeks ahead. So one thing I also wanted to point out about this week, we have 2 moon days taking place, and moon days are always times for emotional refinement and realignment. One of those days is taking place while the moon is in her rulership in Cancer energy, which I think is very telling. The second one happens midweek when the moon shifts into Leo energy. So, of course, Cancer energy, Leo energy, they're both ruled over by the luminaries. I think that the moon in Leo energy returns us to our most authentic vibration and frequency and self after we do the purging, the releasing needed in that Cancer energy as well. That last quarter moon taking place in Cancer energy is no joke. It is a reflection point back to the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo energy that, of course, we're still very much under the influence of. And that is when we have to make some adjustments. When we're realizing what is working, what isn't, who and what need to stay, need to go. And of course, the last quarter moon all the way up to the new moon is the elimination phase where we start releasing, removing, and eliminating all the people, places, and things that just don't fit, especially into this new version of self. So we definitely have a lot of navigating to do here this week. And I think that just taking a good look at where all the energy is going to be popping off, we're going to have some interesting dynamics to explore as far as the Ascension symptoms go as well. We'll talk about that in just a second. So, of course, all the things that I've previously rattled off, again, if you haven't listened to the October energy overview, I'm going to recommend you do that. If you're not following along with the October energy guide, I'm also going to recommend that you jump on that train. We have multitude of moon activations taking place here this week. So the moon guide, if you're not already involved with that, you should get that downloaded and in front of you. And of course, if you need some one-on-one support, October appointments are available. And if you haven't booked or reserved your spot for the 2026 year ahead reading, I would definitely recommend you do that as well, as I don't have too many appointments left. I love that for me. I love that for you, that you were able to reserve a spot, because as I've previously mentioned, this is a service that I will be discontinuing in the new year. So with all of that homework being wrapped up and out of the way, let's dive into what the Ascension symptoms will likely be for this week. So first of all, we have to understand that we're still going through this ending and closure phase. We will continue to be in the ending and closure phase for the remainder of 2025. We also have to remind ourselves that we're going through a defragging phase, meaning this new programming came online. We're recognizing where it is that this new operating system is running into some glitches, mostly because the old operating system is still kind of preventing the applications, the software, from running as optimally as we need it to. So the defragging situation is where we're kind of going through the files one by one, deleting certain files, removing the cache, all of those computer things. But what happens with that is that we get left with gaps, specifically in our memory. Now, a lot of the anxiousness that we're going to be feeling here this week is due to, quote unquote, forgetting. It feels like we're forgetting something, and that feeling, you walk throughout your day and you're like, oh, damn, I just feel like I'm either forgetting an appointment or I'm forgetting somebody's birthday. I feel like I should be somewheres that I'm obviously not. There is that deep, entrenched forgetting energy that just has our guts in a knot. Well, you are forgetting, and you're forgetting the good things and the bad things and the everything in between things, because that's part of the defragging situation. There is no point in hanging on to old memories that you've healed. There's no point in hanging on to old information, data, and details that prove no purpose to this new version of self. And so as we go through this week and our memory banks are kind of being refined in a particular way that is being rebuilt and reformatted to actually support this new programming, this new versions of self, we are going to be feeling a deep sense of forgetting something. Well, we're forgetting the old world. We're forgetting that old pain and trauma. We're forgetting the old version of self, if we've healed it. If you have not healed it, it is going to be so loud, so in your face that you're not going to be able to ignore it. May I also remind you that we are in a very interesting time crunch here, where we have to kind of shit or get off the pot, where we have to make up for the work that we should have been doing, that we haven't been doing, that we have to do now in order to actually be the successful versions of self that we need to be before Saturn and Neptune re-enter into that Aries energy early 2026. We were not the versions of self that we needed to be the first time around. We were given a second go, if you will. That's what we're currently going through now, is stripping away the layers, the falsities, the old ideas, the old programming, the old memories that are blocking the system from actually operating in the way that it should. We cannot move into a new world with a new version of self and create anything new out of the old programming. And so this is why there is a lot of pressure at this present moment. This is why there's a lot of overwhelm taking place at this particular juncture as well. And again, if you feel that anxiety kind of coming out of nowhere, like you've forgotten something, it is likely the fact that you are going through this realignment, this recalibration, and that your memory, your data banks are kind of going through a defrag, a deleting process in order to only leave you with the signature core memories, the imprints, the programs that are going to support you in this next chapter. So there's going to be a lot of heart activations this week, mostly because, again, we find Venus at these final degrees of Virgo energy, even more importantly, sitting at that 29 critical crisis karmic degree that we had the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo in, which is a reverberatory energy, which means that our heart is going through it. Like I previously mentioned, if you're in a relationship dynamic that is not soul connected, that is not for you, that should have blown up under that full moon in Aries. If for whatever reason it did blow up and you're still holding on for dear life, there's a high probability that Venus sitting at this 29th critical crisis karmic degree in Virgo energy is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And if for some reason you were able to desperately hold on to this dead horse any further than this week, then please be highly, highly prepared and advised that it is going to be an absolute roller coaster of emotion, of struggle, of hardship for you to learn your lesson and to let the old go. There are certain people and places and things that cannot go with us into the new year. And this is the ending and closure chapter that we need to be leaning into in order to kind of ruffle those feathers so that we can start seeing where particular foundations and structures of old karmic contracts need to fall apart, end, and die in preparation for us to actually start building this new foundation and structure long before we enter into 2026. There's a lot going on. So having Venus not only sitting at this 29th degree, but having the opposition to Saturn with me here Friday evening, we actually won't be having Venus opposing Saturn until Saturday, October 11th at a 7:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, of course, we are in the midst of that applied pressure right now. That particular residual echo, that hardship, that heaviness, that weight will be with us for the next 3 or 4 days, which takes us into Venus completing her time in that Virgo energy before she moves into her rulership. Major heart activations. Let's talk about it. It could manifest in chest pressure, just feeling like there's an elephant sitting on your chest. It could be tightness in that chest. Maybe you're having a hard time like moving the physical body. Maybe there is a heaviness, a weight really restricting you being able to bring in a full breath. Maybe it's hard to breathe. Maybe there's heart palpitations. Maybe there's irregular heartbeats. Maybe you're having a pain in between your shoulder blades, which would suggest that there is a high level of past pain and trauma that is currently trying to be released through the physical form. And either way, whether it's front, back, side to side, there's going to be some tension in the upper chest. That's just how heart activations kind of manifest. And specifically in Virgo energy, because it is a mutable earth sign, there is going to be more of a heaviness and weight there than if it was in another sign. Now, granted, when we have Venus shift into her rulership in Libra energy, that is an air energy, and that is going to lift that weight, that heaviness almost immediately. But then it puts us in flux, meaning Libra is the scales. We have to teeter-totter back and forth, up and down in order to find that sweet spot, that new grounding spot. And we are in Libra season, so there is this already, this storyline playing out where it is that we have to bring the dysfunction in our lives, the craziness, the chaos, back into a place of peace, harmony, and balance before we can move on into Scorpio season and actually make the major change and transformation on that emotional and soulful level. We're not there yet. We won't be there yet with the sun in Libra. until the new moon takes place. And again, that's on the 21st, just hours before, again, Neptune retrogrades back into the Pisces energy, and just hours before the sun actually shifts into Scorpio energy. So we have a lot of things in flux. And even though Venus is in her rulership over Libra season, and even though Venus will be in her rulership in Libra energy, the scales are still teeter-tottering. Yes, we want things to be light and fluffy. Yes, we want everybody to be happy, peachy keen, sitting around a campfire singing Kumbaya. But the reality is we've had a major karmic activation with that eclipse season that we're still very much in, by the way, until we have that new moon in Libra, which means that karmic contracts, specifically where relationships are concerned, are still up for action. Meaning, we just started seeing the materialization of some of those karmic activations take place under the full moon in Aries, which means that with Venus now moving into Libra energy, we're going to feel that teeter-tottering in our heart space. There's going to be a flip-flopping. There's going to be I'm going to call it indecision paralysis. We know that there's a major pivot point taking place in our heart space. We know that we are changing our priorities, our values, the way that we feel about ourselves, the way that we feel about other people. We know that we are changing the path that we want to walk. But that requires us to be the bad guy, and that's the last thing that Libra energy wants to do, is rock the boat or be the bad guy in somebody else's story. But the full moon in Aries that we just had just illuminated where it is that we have to do that, regardless of how uncomfortable it may be. Why? Because this new version of self has a new set of soul contracts that we as individuals have to fulfill. And that means that we may have to break away from people, places, and things that we made commitments to, that essentially we have to kind of walk away from in order to pursue our own path. Now, that doesn't mean that all relationships are destined to end and die. Karmically speaking, if you're in an encouraging and supporting relationship that is still teaching and helping you to grow, then there is going to be a tweak that needs to happen. Because again, this new version of self means that the boundaries in our relationship dynamics, of course, are going to have to change in order to honor that shift that we're going through individually speaking. But it doesn't mean that all relationships need to end and die. There are some toxic ass, codependent, unhealthy relationship dynamics that are still alive and well, and they shouldn't be. And Venus moving into this Libra energy, as torturous as it may be to flip-flop back and forth and be all over the place, up, down, and all around, eventually will come to a point where we're ready to be the bad guy. We're ready to do what's right for us first and foremost, that we are ready to kind of initiate the new path, the new plan, the new strategy for us to create a realm and reality that not only looks good, that feels good as well, that we don't have to run and numb and hide from. And that may include getting rid of the people in our lives that refuse to create peace, harmony, and balance in our physical realms. So the heart activations, again, are very much needed. There's going to be waves of emotion that come with that teeter-totter of those scales trying to find that sweet spot. And emotionally speaking, we're going to be all over the place. Emotionally speaking, we are going to have waves crash upon us, specifically coming into the week with the moon in Cancer in her rulership, kicking off the very first moon day. That's going to be deep. We're going to be introverted. We're going to be withdrawn from the outer world altogether. We're going to have inner child wounds be triggered and activated. We're going to have pain and trauma wounds come back for acknowledgement. There is going to be this huge wave of sadness, of grief, memory flashbacks, the whole kit and caboodle, in order for us to realize that if we continue to hold on to the past, then we're making the present moment just as heavy, just as weighted as the past was. We cannot create new realms and realities out of old programming, and we have to let those emotions go. There are deep wounds that are going to be revealed here this week, not only with the moon in Cancer, not only with, hitting that 29th degree of Virgo, not only with Venus moving into her rulership, not only with Pluto stationing direct, which of course is the major transference of power that I think we're starting to kind of feel within ourselves and see kind of manifest in different ways on the global stage. But there is this deep wounding pattern coming out of the Chiron aspects that are popping off throughout the course of this week as well. Chiron being the wounded healer. He's currently retrograde, which means that we're not just looking at the sore spots and turning a blind eye like, ooh, that's gross. I'm not looking at it. Ooh, it looks gross. It hurts. Ew. No. It may be gross. It may be a wide open wound, but we're staring at it. And not only are we staring at it, we are hell-bent, damn well and determined to fix it. Why? Because we're running out of time. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm trying to express to you that we have a brand new option and opportunity to re-enter into the new earth that we were not prepared for earlier in 2025. We were so eager beaver, ready to kick that door down. We found ourselves in new earth, so overwhelmed with who it is that we had to be, didn't know where it is to even start being that particular version of self. So we ran back through that doorway. We're now back in the quote unquote comfortable, uncomfortable zone. I call it that because it was so uncomfortable that we couldn't wait to get away from it. But we didn't know what we were doing in that new world, in that new land, in that new territory, that the discomfort started looking pretty damn favorable. So now we're making our way back into the discomfort that now we're finding to be comfortable because it's tried, tested, true, it's familiar. It's semi-predictable. We know what to expect here. And so this is the rebuilding phase. This is the restructuring phase. This is the time that we have to rebuild the version of self that we should have been back in the spring when we had Saturn and Neptune kick the door down into that Aries energy, when Gemini energy came into play with Mr. Uranus finally leaving that Taurus energy that we were also eager beaver to leave as well. And here we are, we're moving back into those energies. We have a very short time to get our shit together, to boss up, to rebuild in anticipation for this redo that is taking place early in 2026. So I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just saying that we're in a very important time. We have 6 new moons taking place at 28 degrees from now until Pisces season. I did a whole hell of a lot of work to dissect this, to kind of, translate this into real language of the opportunities that we have from now until the new astrological calendar begins at the spring equinox, early 2026 on my Patreon. So if you're interested in actually doing the work and actually understanding the patterns that are taking place in the cosmos, giving us this, I'm going to call it grace period to get our shit together. We have 6 events taking place at the final critical crisis degrees from now until the quote unquote new year. We have to do the work. We have to double down. Okay. We are running out of time of getting ourselves to a vibration and frequency that allows us to jump multiple timelines into a timeline that we failed to get ourselves upon 3 years ago. We're making up for lost time here. We're trying. And nothing is written in stone right now that we even have the potentiality among the collective to get ourselves there. Why is that, you may ask? Well, take a good look around. Confusion reigns supreme. I don't know why everybody's confused about what's going on in the world. I myself, I'm not confused at all. I see it very clearly. I think that if you find yourself in a state of confusion, then the, let's call it mass world propaganda to try and make you confused is working. They want you confused because your aura, your biofield is easily accessible when you are in a state of confusion. When you know who you are, when you know your truth, when you're operating from authenticity, your biofield is impenetrable. And this is why we should have been doing the work all along. This is why if you haven't been doing the work and you find yourself in a state of chaos right now and just like flailing like a fish out of water, you're running out of time. I mean that in the nicest way, but we're really kind of getting to the shit or get off the pot stage. And I know you're going to say, well, you've been saying that for a while. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I've been trying not to be so intense and dramatic with it, but like we're really coming to a particular line that once we cross it, we're in a totally different chapter, but we're not there yet. We can see the line, and I think there's a high probability that we could actually reach the line. I don't know, collectively speaking, if we're going to have what it takes to actually cross said line in time. And that's just the way that I see things. That's just, that's just where I'm at. I've been mapping out, the next 3 years ahead, technically the next 15 years, but specifically with the smaller details of the patterns that we need to be kind of recognizing and matching with the energetic work in which we need to be doing. The next 3 years are very pivotal. And right now, we just need to concentrate on the very first catapult opportunity, which we need to be working our asses off to in order to actually reach that particular jump point. And again, we have 6 opportunities from now until the new astrological calendar kicks off in early 2026 in order to do that. Whether we do that is still up for it's still anybody's game, to be quite honest with you. Okay, let's talk about a couple of other things that are going to pop off with the Ascension symptoms, because I guess I found myself on a little bit of a tangent, a little bit of a rant. My bad. Okay, so the headspace obviously is in the majority of a state of confusion. Again, I don't wish that on people, but if you are in a state of confusion, I would really recommend that you withdraw from social media and kind of get a grip on what is real and what is true to you in your own little world before you open yourself up to all of these confusing narratives and all this fakery, this effery out there, because we really need to secure the biofield, okay? And the attacks on the biofield are going to become more and more intense. We need to strengthen that biofield up. We need to make sure that our own energetic frequency is the only one that we are allowing into that biofield. And again, if you have no clue what I'm talking about, then you're behind and you really have a lot of work to do. We definitely have to double down on strengthening that particular energetic signature within us. That being said, the headspace is all over the place. And this week, I talked about even last week that there was like dizziness and disassociation and like vertigo. Well, this is vertigo-ish mixed with the elevator flip-floppy feeling. But even more than that, I feel like it's a floatiness, like our head isn't necessarily attached to the physical body. A lot of the reason for this is this week, I think that the physical body is pretty much exhausted, but our inner realm is just ramping up. So we're like spinning. We're just creating a lot of, motion in our inner realm, but our physical body isn't really going anywheres. And that being said, the upper chakras are being activated, specifically speaking, with all of these air activations in order to bring on new information, data, perspectives, lenses, perceptions, understandings, all of these things. Specifically, when Pluto directs major change, major transformation in our awareness. He's in Aquarius energy, in our consciousness, in our collective consciousness at that, because he is a societal planet, if nothing else. And so, we're going through it, but you have to be grounded. You have to be you have to be aware of your own damn self. You have to be aware of what you are and who you are and what you believe in and what you align with before you open yourself up to all of these chatbots, all of these mouths, all of these thoughts, all of these opinions. That is going to create a sense of not only being disassociated, but it's going to create a sense of your head floating away from your physical form. Let me put it to you this way. Now, again, if you've done drugs in your life, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't done drugs in your life, wow, did you miss out on a good time? I don't really support drug use now that I'm, clean and sober, but damn, what an experience. For those of you that know what I'm talking about, the moment that the drugs kick in, that the drugs hit, that there is that like undeniable realization that the world just becomes different. That is what this week is going to feel like. That exact moment when you're like, yep, the drugs are kicking in. Now, is it going to be a good trip or a bad trip? Well, that's going to be up to you. That's going to be up to your energy. That's going to be up to the power, the control that you have over your headspace, over your emotions, over your own biofield. So this is, again, very important why we're doing these practices, why we're strengthening our own energetic frequency. This is the work. I say all the time, you got to be doing the work. And people are like, what are the work? What is the work? How do you even begin to do the work? You do the work by understanding that you're an energetic body that is being attacked by the energetic frequencies of the artificial, let's call them attack systems, of the physical realm in which you live in. We have to understand that in order to know thyself, in order to heal thyself, you got to get a grip on the energy that you emit. This is why understanding your chakra system is important, understanding how those emotions are kind of interacting with the chakra system, understanding the parasites, the attachments that the outside world throw at your energetic field in order to infiltrate that so they can get in your head, that they can create a particular narrative in your head, that they can tweak your emotions. Again, we are living in a battlefield. You want to call it spiritual? Sure. You want to call it electrical? Just enough. It's all the same shit. Either way, you have to strengthen your field. More so now than ever. And I mean that in the nicest kind of way, without scaring you, without fear-mongering you. You have to strengthen your biofield more so now than ever. Okay. So, yeah, it brings on a lot of pressure in the head. It brings on a lot of tension, headaches. Again, we talk about that headache worm. And I know people hate when I talk about that, because if you can really feel it, especially when the sensations hit and you feel like this moving headache going on, it literally feels like a worm moving through your brain and moving through your headspace. And yeah, that's a little bit of a creepy concept, but I don't know how else to explain it, because a headache, like a real headache, a real new headache in the area of your head usually stays there. You know, there is a scientific medical examination to see where the cluster headaches form or the tension headaches form, but they usually stay in one particular area of your head. When they move, that's not really a headache. That's energy. That is neural pathways being created in real time. That is your cranial nerves activating new information and data in that brain space. That is new information and data coming in from the outer world that your crown is trying to interpret in a way that you're probably not going to understand for a couple of days. But the sensation is very noticeable. Does not feel fun, does not feel good, but it's very noticeable. And of course, that's going to contribute to the what the F? What the F is that? Where did it come from? How is it happening? How do I get rid of it? Again, if you're looking for healing modalities or understanding of what's going on in your biofield or in your auric field or just in your chakras, in your energy, if you're just looking to understand what this whole ascension process is all about, get yourself the Ascension manual. That's why I wrote it. It is literally the only type of resource that you need. You could be sitting around and being like, it feels like a worm moving through my brain. I wonder what that's all about. You could go to the back. You could look up the symptom reference of, headaches or head movement or whatever. You could flip to that particular reference. Likely, it's going to tell you, oh, this is crown activations. This is due to this happening. And it's likely going to be air activations. And it's likely going to take you to the page to let you know when you look at, all of the things going on in the run of the day for those energy forecasts that I put out there, you're going to be able to match it up perfectly and be like, oh, exactly. Look at this major air activation between, Uranus and Pluto. No wonder I'm having that sensation. And then all of a sudden, your central nervous system calms down because you have information and data to prove that this sensation, as uncomfortable as it may be, that there's a reason for it. Even more than that, you flip to the healing and remedy section on how to, ground your energy out, how to slow the information down in that headspace. And what happens is when you put it into practice, you actually gain more power and control over these ascension symptoms. And that means that you have more power and control over your biofield, over, your auric field, over your own energy bubble. You can call it whatever it is that you want to call it. Labels don't matter. It's all the same thing. So that means that we have some head activations taking place, that we are going to see a new perspective, new truth, new detail be revealed to help us kind of, snap those puzzle pieces together. And when that happens, that means that our third eye is opening up or advancing to a new level of awareness. Specifically, with Pluto stationing direct in Aquarius energy is the conscious collective. It is the level of awareness that the collective is operating at, and therefore where you're operating at. That is huge third eye activation. When we have third eye activations, we have sinus issues. We have sinus congestion. We have allergies pop off. We have, sensitivity and pain behind the eyes. Even more than that, I'm going to put on the list this week, which I hate because it's not fun, nosebleeds. When you have a huge download, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a visual here. If you watch Stranger Things and you notice that when there's like a lot of energy being channeled through the physical body, that she has a nosebleed, that's the reason for it. Many psychics, many seers, many people that dabble in the metaphysical realms they suffer from nosebleeds for good reason. And when we have activations taking place that allows us to see a little bit more depth, a little bit more detail into the other realms, that is a level of newness. And that level of newness comes with great pressure. And that great pressure, yes, is going to create sinus congestion, but could also create some nosebleeds, which I want you to be prepared for. Now, whether it is sinus congestion or nosebleeds, there's this whole, post-nasal drip thing that's taking place going down in the back of your throat. So there's a lot of throat clearing needed. There is a lot of coughing fits because, of course, that dabbles down into your lungs. We're already having tightness in our chest and those heart activations. So coughing fits are going to help to release those emotions as well. But it's all connected. It's all, it's all a domino effect. So, if you're having that tightness in the chest due to the heart activations and you're also having sinus congestion, then, and you have these coughing fits as well, well, it's likely that you're going to have a hard time breathing. It's going to feel like your throat is like a straw and you're trying to breathe through a straw, which of course doesn't feel good either. But all of these are ascension symptoms, activations to let you know where there is a blockage, where it is that the new light, the new information is having a hard time traveling through your meridian lines, and where it is that it's up to you to move the physical body and to do the investigative work into the area of body and therefore the relatable chakra of that particular area of body to understand the emotional, mental, karmic, spiritual residue that is stuck in that particular area of the body, and thus why you're having that particular ascension symptom. It is not good enough just to lay down and let these energies pass. You have to do something in the physical body to move these particular energies or they will stay blocked. So I want to talk about the rib for a second. Rib pain, rib discomfort. Sometimes when you sit down, it almost feels like your rib is sitting right on top of, like, I don't know if it's your hip bone or whatever, but there's like this like clicking or grinding sensation. It's like, what the F is going on? Well, that's going to be this week. And I don't know if it's like the actual rib pain. So again, coughing, laughing, or is going to be a little bit of, an irritant to it. I don't know if it's just going to be feeling weird, like it just doesn't sit right in your body. I don't know if it's going to be like clicking, like in and out, like if you, put your hand on it to rub it or whatever the case may be. Maybe you're rubbing your back because you're having, breathing or digestive issues or whatever. And in your rib just doesn't feel right. The rib is off. Now, do I want to go into a rant and tangent about this? I will give you a summarized version. The reconstruction of the, let's call it energy body and physical body and new programming, it's all happening like in tandem. It's all happening at the same time, but we're at different download speeds with the different parts of self that need to come online. Do you see how my voice is going? This is how I know that they don't want me talking about this shit. This happens to me every freaking time that I start talking about things that I want to talk about that I know that I shouldn't talk about because the collective's not ready for it. But anyways, I'm going to clear my throat, pardon me, and we're going to continue onward. There is a recalibration or restructuring going on to the physical body, to the energy body, to the new programming. We have come to believe that, the rib was very prominent in mythological Christianity belief. Yes, I said mythological, okay? The rib is actually changing because the DNA structure of our bodies are changing, because the biological system and structure is changing, because the energy body is changing. Therefore, the rib is being activated here this week because there is this, I'm just going to call it mutation going on in our DNA and your cellular structure that has the rib acting out and acting a fool. I think that's all I want to kind of lead into. That should be enough just to kind of let you know that we're in a very important phase of rebuilding and restructuring thyself, the energetic self, the physical, biological self, and the programming that runs both of them. When we talk about that rib, we talk about the feminine and masculine divine energies. Okay, stay with me. Venus is activating that 29th critical crisis karmic degree, which is a karmic cleanup degree in that Virgo energy that, again, is resonating back to the echoes of the karmic chapters that got triggered and activated under the eclipse. But even more than that, when she moves into Libra energy, she's going to be in her rulership. The moon is also going to be in her rulership in Cancer energy at that time. Where is the masculine energy, you may ask? Oh yeah, he is in his rulership over in the Scorpio energy. Okay, so we have the moon in Cancer energy rewriting the emotional programming. We have Venus moving into her rulership in Libra energy, which is trying to balance the scales between the biological and, let's call it, energetic spiritual structure of the physical form. We have Mars in his rulership in Scorpio energy, making the change and transformation on the soul and spiritual level, first and foremost, before we get to take action, put it into practice in the physical realm. Okay, so we're doing psychic surgery over there with Mars in Scorpio energy to unearth and unleash new passions, new desires of this new version of self. So if you take all of those hints and clues and you piece them together, the rib ascension symptom starts making a little bit more sense. Or I guess it's my hope that it makes a little bit more sense to you. Okay, moving on. Midweek, specifically when the moon shifts into Leo energy, and we have our second moon day of the week in that Leo energy, that is where I'm going to call it, energy starts to get spicy, okay? We're going to, up until that point, probably be erring on the side of feeling cold feet, cold hands, just cold everything. Whether you're in a warm spot or you should be warm, doesn't matter. There's going to be cold energy running through us. Midweek, when the moon shifts into that Leo energy, we're going to have an abrupt switch be flipped, and we're going to be running hot. Okay, so we go from extreme cold, like feeling like, existential dread got our soul frozen, okay, to absolutely being on fire. Now, the reason for this, just because I like to make sense of things here, the Leo energy is where our soul space comes into the heart chakra, which then needs to be expressed through the physical ego avatar that our physical meat suits are. Okay, so our authenticity, the actual authentic signature and coding of our soul programming, that gets activated in Leo energy. So there's going to be like a rush come through. I would expect that there is going to be a heaviness and a weight, a real, I'm going to call it, paralyzing state of being up until midweek when the moon shifts into that Leo energy. We get this free, cleared channel of receiving the authentic signature codes of our soul self rush in through the crown, hit that chakra, that heart chakra, wide open. And we are essentially going to be running hot. That's a fire energy. The sun rules over Leo energy. So the sun is literally going to be running through us, okay? And that is going to start tipping the scales in Libra season towards us finding a new compromise spot or point. It is also going to be putting us in a situation where that heart activation is going to give us the boldness, the bravery, the courage needed in order to be the bad guy, in order to do the damn thing that we've been avoiding throughout this whole freaking Libra season. And it's coming in at a perfect time because, like I previously mentioned, we're building towards the ending point of this Libra season that is going to be kicked off and closed out with a huge bang with that new moon in Libra at, again, 28 degrees, the first of 6. Again, if you're interested in doing a deep dive, jump over to my Patreon. But we are being set up here. These are all dominoes that need to be perfectly aligned for the big hurrah, the final finale, if you will. And we are building towards this new energy coming in through our heart chakra, again, Leo energy, to blaze this new path, to tip the scales in our favor, to put us in a situation, in a circumstance where we're actually leaving the past behind in the way that we should have left it behind and many, many moons ago that we didn't because we resisted doing it, that now we're going to do. So there's going to be a lot of spiciness. There's going to be a lot of passion. There's going to be a lot of, I'm going to call it anger and aggression because it's all the same fuel. Okay. How we transmute it, how we express it is what makes it either excitement, passion, desire, or anger, frustration, and rage. Either way, it's fueling a change. So at this point, we really shouldn't care how it manifests. As long as we're using that fuel to motivate us and to fuel us in the path of change and transformation, that's all we need to be concerned about. The last thing that we want to do is start this fire and allow this fire to burn us down and burn us out. We don't want that. We want it to be a continuous fire, a fuel to motivate us and encourage us to do the damn thing. So with that incoming heat, you can see flare-ups, okay? You're going to see flare-ups and inflammation. If you have any chronic illness at all, you're going to see inflammation take over. You could even run a low-grade fever. We have to understand fire and inflammation. It gets the body all riled up. In some ways, great. In some ways, not so good. Either way, we have to deal with whatever it is that manifests in the physical form, ask it what it's trying to teach us, and dissect and kind of, trace back the root cause of where this energy is actually stemming from. Now, this is going to have a major impact on our gut. It always does. But with Venus at the final degrees of Virgo energy, and then we get flip-flopped into basically the last quarter moon in Cancer, which always gets our guts in a rut. Virgo energy does that as well. And then we're on this like seesaw teeter-totter effect with Venus moving into Libra. And then we get this major kick in our ass with Pluto stationing direct. Let me just say that our bubble guts is going to be a major topic and theme here this week. Could be nausea, could be, the bubble guts. It could be major IBS flare-ups, major stomach cramping. I don't know. It could just be that you're bloated. It could be that you're retaining water. Maybe it's not even water retention in your gut. Maybe your ankles are going to swell up. Maybe your face gets puffy. Either way, it's because we're going through this major change in motion, okay? The motion of the ocean. And that's definitely where many of us are going to feel seasick, especially with all of these other things popping off. So what do we do when we're in a state of discomfort, but we're trying not to let anybody know, and we're just trying to kind of mask it and just kind of sit with ourselves? We hold tension in our bodies. There's tension and rigidity. We hold ourselves very, very tight. We should be releasing that tension. We should be more fluid. If we're on a boat, we should be rocking with the waves instead of trying to hold our body straight and rocking against them. But nonetheless, that's what the physical body does. A lot of that tension is going to be held in the jaw, in the neck, in the shoulders, just in the bone structure itself, specifically in the lower extremities as well. That's where we hold fear. But I think that if we're talking about the jaw for a second, TMJ flare-ups, toothaches. Now, last week I did talk about quote unquote dental emergencies. I hope that none of us had to experience that. I don't know that I would call it dental emergencies this week. I just think there's a lot of tension being held in the jaw, in the mouth. If our throat is kind of suffocating through that straw-like breathing sensation, and there's postnasal drip that we're trying to clear out, and our vocal cords aren't working, we're just going to kind of shut up and hold ourselves, in that rigidity. And I feel like I don't think it's going to be a dental emergency as much as just holding too much fire in our mouths and in our jaws. And of course, that's just going to cluster F the headaches and the sinus congestion and the tension in our necks and in our shoulders. So just keep that kind of in the back of your mind on where it is that you're clenching your jaw, and make every amount of effort to release that jaw and to release that rigidity and to release that tension every chance that you get. Okay, so this week, because we have all of these things in flux, there is going to be a huge amount of creative downloads. And we're going to be able to make sense of them right away. What we're not going to be able to do is take action upon them. And there's nothing worse than having a great idea that inspires you, that excites you, that you can't do nothing with, okay? So it's like a creative overwhelm, because it's like, oh my goodness, I could do that, or I could do that, or here's the solution for that, but you can't do anything. Okay. It's almost like you have to sit there and you have to have this, realm of exploration go on in your headspace, and you have to ride the waves of inspiration and excitement without coming off that side bench. Okay. And that is frustrating AF. Okay. I'm not saying that it's not, but when we have creative overwhelm, what happens is we get fixated on those looping thoughts on, okay, so I got to do this, 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 and this. The key here is to get it out of your body. What do I mean by that? Write that shit down. If you're having good ideas, write them down. If you're kind of, piecing together the plan and the strategy in your head, get it out of your head, write it down. When you allow that kind of energy to bounce around with no boundaries, with no structure, with no completion in your headspace, you are in fact contributing to the mental overwhelm and confusion and disassociation and disorientation that you don't want to feel. So do something about it. If you have a creative idea, write it down, be done with it, set it aside, put it in a book, put it away until you are guided to take action upon it. This is not a week for action. And I know people are getting frustrated. The only action that you need to be taking is coming to a term of acceptance within yourself that certain things, certain people, certain places, certain aspects need to end and die. The only action that you need to be taking in the physical realm is to align yourself with closing the door on certain people, places, and things. As far as new ideas, as far as new inspirations go, new passions go, that has to stay on a book, on the back burner for the foreseeable future. It is not time for that. Doesn't mean that they're not good ideas, doesn't mean that you're not going to eventually pursue them, but there's a time and a place, and it ain't this week. Now that kind of adds to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is OCD. Now, I know people throw that term around a lot, but when it comes to obsessive thoughts, okay, racing thoughts, obsessive thoughts, being fixated on one thing, hello, Mercury and Scorpio, okay, we're waving to Mercury and Scorpio because he is responsible for that, but also Virgo, hey, Venus and Virgo at 29 degrees, hey, Moon and Virgo at the end of the week, hey, Pluto, direct, all obsessive thinking, all racing thoughts, all intensified ideas that you can't do anything with. So that's not fun. But again, you're being tested right now. We have been in boot camp. We're currently still in boot camp. Your goal when we have these tension aspects that pop off and these ascension symptoms that manifest because of it, the goal here is to see how much power and control you have over your mind and over your emotions. That creates your energetic field. You have to strengthen your energetic field, which means that doesn't matter if you're super excited about this potential idea. You can only focus on it so much. When you realize that you're repeating the same thing over and over and over again, it's not going anywhere because you reach a certain, let's call it brick wall with an idea. It's time to stop thinking about it. It's time to say, okay, brain, thank you so much. I'm going to write you down in this lovely little notebook and I'm going to revisit you later. You have to have the power and control, the willpower and discipline to shut that brain power down. Okay. It's doing you no favors if it's just repeating over and over and over and over again. You got to get it out. You got to back burner it. You got to let it simmer. You got to let it settle. It will manifest in its due time, but not at the expense of your mental health. So you have to be the one to draw the line in the sand and say, you know what? Okay, I've thought about this enough. It's going absolutely nowhere. I have other things to focus on. I have other things to do. Let me cut it off right here. That being said, we are hella sensitive here this week in all ways, all directions, all interpretations of that. But may I also just kind of weave in here that I think where our sensory systems are concerned, yes, the central nervous system going through recalibration for sure. The one thing that I think is going to be hijacked or jacked up or put on steroids or just magnified to an uncomfortable situation and circumstance here this week is our sound sensitivity. I want to remind you that as you strengthen your own vibration and frequency, that alters the way that you're able to accept other vibrations and frequencies into your field. Okay? So when I say, many of us know that we hear electricity. Many of us know that we can hear music coming from other dimensions. We've had these experiences before. They're not new. Do they happen all the time? No. Do they happen when the cosmos is jacked up? Yes. Is this going to be a week for that? Absolutely. Our sound sensitivity is definitely being focused on here this week. And a lot of that, it's very uncomfortable. It's not fun, but it's a great indicator that we ourselves are doing what needs to be done in order to strengthen our own vibration, our own frequency, our own sound signature. And if you can hear my dog barking in the background, then you would know that I am highly, highly agitated by that particular sound, because it happens every freaking week. And it's usually my sign to shut it down. But when I talk about signatures, she has a particular bark, a particular frequency. I don't even have to look out and see what she's reacting to. I can tell by her frequency signature what she is interacting with. And as of late, because the sound is kind of being amplified, because we are going through this reprogramming, this jacked up frequency signature, her bark in particular goes right through me. It is, I love her to death. I am used to her bark. She is like 8 years old. This is not new, but as of late, I have noticed that I am more sensitive to her barking. It's overwhelming. It's overstimulating. It is not the vibration and frequency that used to be a good match for me. And so I guess I'm just using real life situations and circumstances right now to kind of prove my point that this week, certain sounds that you found comfort in are going to rub you the wrong way. Certain sounds that you've been around your whole life, or at least recently, they're going to be intolerable. Certain sounds are going to essentially paralyze you if the frequency is no longer a compatible match to the frequency that you are currently strengthening. So although the central nervous system is very much encompassed by all the senses, I feel like the auditory sense is going to be jacked up here this week. And that means that we're going to be hella super sensitive to sound of all kinds, of all situations and circumstance. So pay special attention to that. So guys, I'm taking a look at my list. I think I've checked everything off that I wanted to talk about. Again, I know every week it's like people tune in and they're like, this is going to be the week that we're going to get a break, that we're going to be happy, that we're going to just, have a good week. Well, it's not that we're being punished, because we're not, but we're in a serious situation and circumstance right now where, again, this isn't about having fun. This is about healing. This is about doing the work that we need to do to eventually be able to bring heaven to earth. Right now, there's just too much junk, too much gunk alive and well here in the physical earth plane to even fathom being able to bring happiness and joy as a permanent feature into the physical realm. So if we want to have a break, if we want to have fun, if we want to truly be happy, you got to double down. You got to do the hard parts. You got to do the shadow work now. So yet another week that we get tested, yet another week that we get challenged, yet another week that we get to know ourselves on a level that we have never met thus far, which means that we're growing, we're evolving, and growing pains are never fun. I thank you for tuning in. I send you so much love, and we'll talk to you soon.